Jake Martinez crouched behind a broken rock formation on the moon's gray surface. His rifle felt heavy in his hands as he watched the enemy ships land in the distance. The mission was simple: patrol the area and report back to base. Nothing exciting ever happened on Zalara Prime. That changed when the first explosion lit up the dark sky. Jake raised his binoculars and saw burning metal scattered across the landing zone. A diplomatic convoy had been hit. Smoke rose from twisted wreckage while armored soldiers moved between the flames like hunting wolves. Through the smoke, Jake saw something that made him forget his training. A woman with long silver hair was being dragged from a burning transport by two soldiers. Even from far away, Jake could see her pointed ears and pale skin. She was not human. The woman fought against her captors, but they were too strong. One soldier hit her with the back of his weapon. She fell to her knees, blood running down her face. Jake knew he should call for backup. He should wait for orders. He should think before acting. Instead, he ran toward the battle. His boots pounded against the rocky ground as laser fire erupted around the crash site. The enemy soldiers wore black armor with red symbols on their helmets. Jake recognized them as Dominion forces, the worst kind of enemy to face. Jake dropped behind a piece of burning metal and aimed his rifle. The first soldier went down with a clean shot to the chest. The second soldier spun around, searching for the shooter. Jake put a bullet through his helmet. The woman with silver hair looked up at him with eyes like starlight. Jake had never seen anything so beautiful or so afraid. "Can you run?" Jake shouted over the sound of more ships landing nearby. She nodded and tried to stand. Her legs shook, but she managed to get to her feet. Jake grabbed her hand and pulled her toward better cover as more enemy soldiers appeared. "This way," Jake said, leading her between chunks of twisted metal. Laser bolts flew past their heads, heating the air around them. The woman stumbled, and Jake caught her before she fell. Up close, he could see she wore clothes made of material that seemed to shimmer in the firelight. Her skin was perfectly smooth except for the cut on her forehead. "Who are you?" she asked in a voice like music. "Jake Martinez, Human Colonial Marines," he said, checking his rifle's ammunition. "You?" "Lydia," she said. "Princess Lydia Starweaver, of the Celestial Courts." Jake almost dropped his weapon. He had just saved an alien princess. This was either the best or worst day of his military career. More soldiers appeared, surrounding their position. Jake counted at least 12 enemies, moving in from different directions. His rifle had maybe 30 shots left. The math was not good. "Stay behind me," Jake told Lydia. He stepped out from cover and opened fire. The battle became a blur of movement and sound. Jake moved like a machine, shooting and rolling, finding new cover as the enemy closed in. He took a laser burn on his left shoulder but kept fighting. Another burn hit his leg and he stumbled but did not fall. Lydia watched in amazement as this human fought with impossible courage. She had seen many warriors in her long life, but none fought like Jake. He moved as if her life was more important than his own. When Jake's rifle ran empty, he pulled out his sidearm and kept shooting. A laser bolt caught him in the chest, burning through his armor. He fell to one knee but continued firing. "Behind you," Lydia screamed. Jake spun and shot the soldier who had been sneaking up on them. The enemy fell, but not before his weapon discharged. The laser bolt hit Jake in the back, and he collapsed face first into the dirt. Lydia ran to him and rolled him over. Blood ran from his mouth and his eyes were unfocused. He was dying, and it was because he had saved her life. "No," she whispered. "You cannot die." "Not for me." Without thinking, Lydia placed her hands on Jake's chest and began to speak words in the old language of her people. The words came from deep memory, from stories told by her grandmother about the forbidden arts. Light began to flow from her hands into Jake's body. It was her life force, her very essence, flowing into this dying human. The ancient magic had never been used on an alien before. She did not know if it would work or if it would kill them both. Jake's breathing became stronger. The light from Lydia's hands grew brighter, surrounding them both in a silver glow. The burns on his body began to heal and his eyes focused on her face. Something impossible happened in that moment. As Lydia's life force mixed with Jake's, a connection formed between their minds. She could feel his thoughts, his emotions, his memories. He could feel hers. It was the sacred bond of her people, but it had never happened with a human before. "What did you do?" Jake whispered, sitting up slowly. "I saved your life," Lydia said, but she knew it was more than that. She had changed both of their destinies with that choice. In the distance, they could hear human ships approaching. Jake's backup had finally arrived. The enemy soldiers retreated as colonial marine fighters screamed overhead. Jake stood and helped Lydia to her feet. They looked at each other, both feeling the strange connection that now existed between them. Neither understood what it meant, but both knew their lives would never be the same. "Thank you," Lydia said softly. "You saved me without even knowing who I was." "It was the right thing to do," Jake replied. "I could not watch them hurt you." As rescue ships landed around them, Jake and Lydia stood together in the aftermath of battle. They did not know that their meeting would change the fate of two entire species. They only knew that in a universe full of darkness and war, they had found something worth protecting in each other. The silver glow faded from around them, but the bond remained. Across the galaxy, ancient prophecies stirred in the minds of seers and wise ones. The first steps toward a new future had been taken. On a small moon where a human marine chose courage over caution, and an elven princess chose love over law. 3 months had passed since the battle on Zalara Prime, but Jake Martinez could not forget the elf princess with silver hair. He worked as a security guard on New Terra Station now, having been discharged from the Marines due to his injuries. The doctor said he was lucky to be alive. Every night Jake dreamed of Lydia. In these dreams he could feel her thoughts and emotions as if they were his own. Sometimes he saw places he had never been, crystal cities floating in space and forests, filled with trees that glowed like stars. He told himself they were just dreams, but they felt too real. Jake was checking the security monitors in the station's main docking bay when the alert came through. A diplomatic ship from the Celestial Courts was requesting permission to dock. Jake's heart began to race before he even knew why. The ship was beautiful beyond anything human technology could create. It looked like it was made of silver and light, flowing through space like a living thing. As it settled into the docking bay, Jake felt a familiar warmth in his chest, the same feeling he had experienced when Lydia had healed him. Jake knew he should stay at his post, but his feet carried him toward the docking bay entrance. A crowd had gathered to see the elven delegation. Most humans had never seen an elf in person before. The ship's door opened with a sound like wind chimes, and figures in flowing robes stepped out. Jake searched their faces until he found the one he was looking for. Lydia stood among the other elves, wearing a dress that seemed to be made of starlight itself. Their eyes met across the crowd, and Jake felt the connection between them flare to life. Lydia's face showed surprise and something else. Happiness. She had felt the bond too, every day since they parted. Jake tried to approach her, but security guards and diplomats surrounded the elven delegation. Lydia was led away to meetings with station officials, but not before she looked back at him one more time. In that glance, Jake saw a promise that they would find a way to be together. For the next 3 days, Jake watched Lydia from a distance as she attended diplomatic functions. The connection between them grew stronger with each passing hour. He could feel her frustration during boring meetings and her loneliness when she was alone in her quarters. On the 4th night, Jake was patrolling the upper levels when he found Lydia standing alone on an observation deck looking out at the stars. She had slipped away from her guards to find him. "Hello, Jake Martinez," she said without turning around. "Your Highness," Jake replied, not sure how to act around royalty. "Just Lydia," she said, finally facing him. "The bond between us makes such formality seem foolish." Jake stepped closer. In the starlight, Lydia looked even more beautiful than he remembered. Her silver hair seemed to glow with its own light, and her eyes held depths he could spend a lifetime exploring. "What happened to us back there?" Jake asked. "I can feel your thoughts sometimes, your emotions." "I saved your life with old magic," Lydia explained. "But the ritual was never meant to be used on humans. It created something new, a soul bond between our species that should not exist. Is it wrong? Jake asked. Lydia moved closer to him. My people would say yes. Humans and elves are not meant to be together. We are too different. But what do you say? Lydia reached out and touched Jake's face with her delicate fingers. I say that you risked your life for a stranger. I say that your courage saved me when I had given up hope. I say that wrong or right, I cannot stop thinking about you. Jake leaned into her touch. I dream about you every night. Places I have never seen, feelings that are not my own. Those are my memories, you see, Lydia said softly. Just as I see yours, the bond shares everything between us. They stood close together, both feeling the pull of something stronger than duty or law. Jake had never met anyone like Lydia, intelligent, brave, and kind in ways that made his heart ache. Lydia had never known a man like Jake, simple and honest, willing to sacrifice everything without asking for anything in return. This is dangerous, Lydia whispered. If my people discover our connection, it could cause a war between our species. Then we will be careful, Jake said, taking her hand in his. For the next week, they met in secret whenever Lydia could slip, away from her diplomatic duties. They talked for hours about their different worlds, their hopes and fears, their dreams for the future. Jake learned about elven culture, their connection to nature, their long lives, their mystical abilities. Lydia learned about human determination, their short but passionate lives, their incredible ability to adapt and overcome. The more time they spent together, the stronger their bond became. They could communicate without words, feel each other's pain and joy, and sense each other's presence from across the station. What had started as magical healing had become something neither of them expected: love. One night, as they sat together in a hidden garden on the station's residential level, their feelings overwhelmed them both. They came together like two stars colliding, passion and tenderness mixing with the mystical energy that flowed between them. Afterwards, as they lay in each other's arms, Lydia felt a change in the bond between them. Something new had been created, a life that was both human and elf, impossible but undeniably real. Jake, she whispered, her voice filled with wonder and fear. What is it? He asked, stroking her silver hair. I am with child, she said. Our child? Jake sat up, his mind racing. Is that possible? It should not be, Lydia said, placing her hand on her stomach. Humans and elves cannot have children together. Our biology is too different. But the bond between us has changed the rules. Jake felt a mixture of joy and terror. He was going to be a father, but their child would be living proof of their forbidden relationship. When the elven court discovered Lydia's pregnancy, there would be consequences neither of them could imagine. What will happen when your people find out? Jake asked. I do not know, Lydia admitted. No elf has ever carried a half-human child before. Some will see it as an abomination. Others might see it as a miracle. Jake held her close, feeling protective of both Lydia and the child growing inside her. Whatever happens, we will face it together. Together, Lydia agreed. But she could feel through their bond that Jake was afraid. She was afraid too, but also excited. Their child would be something new in the universe, a bridge between two species that had never truly understood each other. As they held each other under the artificial stars of the station's garden, neither Jake nor Lydia knew that their child's conception had already sent ripples through the mystical fabric that connected all elven minds. Ancient seers were stirring from meditation, prophetic dreams were beginning to unfold, and the course of galactic history was shifting toward a future that would test the strength of their love and the courage of their choices. The bond between them pulsed with new life, carrying with it the hope that love could overcome the barriers between species, worlds, and destinies. The message came to Lydia's quarters in the middle of the night. The seal of the High Council glowed with urgent red light as it materialized above her communication device. Jake felt her fear through their bond before she even opened the message. Return to Thessarian immediately. the message said in the formal language of the court. Your presence is required for judgment. Lydia's hands shook as the message faded. Jake, who had been sleeping beside her, sat up and pulled her close. They know, she whispered. How? Jake asked, though he already suspected the answer. The child, Lydia said, placing her hand on her stomach where their baby was growing. Elven pregnancies create changes in the mystical network that connects all our people. The seers would have felt it the moment our child was conceived. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. Let them come. I will protect you both. Lydia smiled sadly. You cannot fight an entire civilization, my brave human. I must go home and face whatever judgment awaits. Then I am going with you, Jake said, firmly. That would only make things worse, Lydia protested. Bringing you to the elven homeworld would be seen as an act of war, but Jake had already made up his mind. We are bonded. Where you go, I go. Our child deserves to have both parents, fighting for its future. 2 days later, they boarded Lydia's diplomatic ship. The elven crew looked at Jake with mixture of curiosity and disgust, but they followed their princess's orders. The journey to Thessarian took a week, during which Lydia taught Jake about elven customs and the political situation he was walking into. The High Council is led by Elder Sage Mira Goldleaf, Lydia explained as they traveled through hyperspace. She is ancient even by elven standards, and remembers the old wars between our species. She will not be easily convinced that our bond is anything but a contamination. What about the prophecies you mentioned? Jake asked. The ones about our child? Lydia's expression became thoughtful. The prophecies speak of a starborn child who will bridge the gap between magic and technology. Born of 2 species, this child will either save the galaxy or destroy it. Most elves believe such prophecies are just old stories. But you believe them? I can feel our child's power growing stronger every day, Lydia said, placing Jake's hand on her stomach. Sometimes I think I can hear the baby's thoughts. It is not natural, even for an elf. When they arrived at Thessarian, Jake's breath was taken away by the beauty of the elven homeworld. Crystal cities floated among clouds, connected by bridges of pure light. Ancient trees taller than skyscrapers grew in perfect harmony with buildings that seemed to be made of captured starlight. But the beauty of the world could not hide the tension in the air. Elven guards surrounded their ship as it landed in the capital city's main spaceport. Jake could feel the hostility directed at him through his bond with Lydia. The High Council chamber was a massive crystal dome at the heart of the floating city. Inside, 12 ancient elves sat in chairs carved from single gems, their faces showing the wisdom and weariness of centuries. At their center sat Elder Sage Mira Goldleaf, her hair white as moonlight and her eyes holding the depth of ages. Princess Lydia Starweaver, the Elder Sage said in a voice like wind through leaves. You stand accused of contaminating your royal bloodline with alien essence. How do you answer? Lydia stepped forward, her chin raised in defiance. I answer that love knows no boundaries between species, Elder Sage. The bond between Jake Martinez and myself was created through ancient magic to save a life. What grew from that bond is not contamination, but evolution, the council members whispered among themselves. One of them, a stern-faced elf with golden hair, spoke up. You carry an abomination in your womb, child. No good can come from mixing our pure blood with that of these violent humans. Jake started to step forward angrily, but Lydia held him back with a gentle touch. She had warned him that the elves would try to provoke him into proving their point about human violence. Elder Sage Mira raised her hand for silence. There are ancient laws that govern such situations, she said slowly. Laws so old that most have forgotten them. She gestured, and a massive book appeared in the air before her, its pages turning by themselves. In the time before memory, when our people first learned to reach for the stars, it was written that any heir to the throne must be acknowledged by both parents. Furthermore, the father of such an heir must be considered for kingship, regardless of species. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. Jake felt as surprised as any of them. He had come here expecting to fight for his right to love Lydia, not to be offered a crown. That law was written when we believed only elves could produce heirs, protested the golden-haired council member. Surely it does not apply to this situation. The law makes no distinction of species, Elder Sage Mira replied firmly. If Princess Lydia's child is truly an heir to our throne, then Jake Martinez must be considered for the crown of the celestial courts. Jake found his voice. I do not want your crown, he said. I only want to protect my family. Elder Sage Mira studied him with ancient eyes. What you want may not matter, young human. The child growing in Princess Lydia's womb is already showing signs of immense power. Our seers have felt it across the galaxy. If the prophecies are true, this child will reshape the balance of power among all species. As if responding to the mention of its power, the baby inside Lydia suddenly pulsed with energy. The crystal walls of the council chamber began to glow, and several council members gasped as they felt the child's presence touch their minds. Impossible, whispered one of the elves. The child is not even born yet, but its power is already beyond anything we have seen. Elder Sage Mira stood from her chair, her expression grave. The prophecies speak truly. This child will be the bridge between worlds, but great danger comes with great power. There are those among both our species who would see this child destroyed rather than let it fulfill its destiny. As if summoned by her words, alarms began ringing throughout the crystal city. Through the dome's transparent walls, they could see ships descending from orbit, ships that bore the markings of both human supremacist groups and elven purist factions. They have come, Elder Sage Mira said grimly. Those who fear change more than they love their people. The child's power has drawn them here like moths to flame. Jake instinctively moved to protect Lydia as explosions began to rock the city. Outside, through their bond, he could feel her fear and determination mixing together. Their child's life was in danger before it was even born. What do we do? Jake asked. Elder Sage Mira looked at him with new respect. You learn to be a king, Jake Martinez. Because ready or not, the galaxy is about to need leaders who can unite rather than divide. As battle raged around the Crystal City, Jake realized that his simple life as a Marine was truly over. The crown he had never wanted was being forced upon him by destiny itself, and the woman he loved was carrying a child that might save or doom them all. The bond between him and Lydia pulsed with shared determination. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The attack on Thessarian was only the beginning. Within hours of the assault on the Crystal City, reports came in from across the galaxy. Human supremacist fleets were attacking elven colonies, while elven purist forces struck at human settlements. Each side claimed the other had attacked first. Jake stood in the war room of the High Council, studying the tactical displays with growing horror. The conspiracy was larger than anyone had imagined. Military leaders from both species had been planning this war for months, waiting for the right moment to strike. They are using your child as an excuse, Elder Sage Mira explained as she pointed to the battle reports. The extremists on both sides see the pregnancy as proof that their species is being weakened by alien influence. Lydia, now 6 months, pregnant and showing clearly, placed her hand on her swollen belly. The baby had been restless all day, as if it could sense the violence spreading across the galaxy. How many have died because of us? She asked quietly. This is not your fault, Jake said firmly. These people chose hate over hope. They chose war over peace. Through the crystal walls, they could see the ongoing battle for the elven capital. Human ships with dark hull markings exchanged fire with elven vessels that gleamed like silver daggers. Neither side was winning, but both were losing lives by the thousands. A communication officer rushed into the room. Your Highness, we are receiving a priority message from the Human Colonial Assembly. Admiral Lisa Brooks requests immediate contact with Princess Lydia and Jake Martinez. Admiral Brooks appeared as a hologram in the center of the room. She was a stern woman with graying hair and eyes that had seen too much war. Princess Lydia, Mr. Martinez, I am speaking to you from Earth's orbital defense platform. We are under attack by ships claiming to represent the celestial courts. Those are not our ships, Lydia said immediately. The High Council has authorized no such attack. I believe you. Admiral Brooks replied. "Just as I hope you will believe that the Human Colonial Assembly has not authorized attacks on your people. We are both being manipulated by extremists who want this war." Jake stepped forward. "Admiral, what can we do to stop this?" "You need to get to Earth," Admiral Brooks said. "Both of you. The only way to end this is for leaders from both species to stand together and show the galaxy that cooperation is possible." Elder Sage Mira shook her head. "The journey is too dangerous. Princess Lydia is in the final months of her pregnancy. The stress of space travel could harm both her and the child. The stress of this war will harm everyone," Jake pointed out. "If we do not act now, there might not be a galaxy left for our child to inherit." As they debated, another alarm sounded. This time the threat came from space itself. A massive fleet of unknown ships had appeared at the edge of the solar system, moving toward Thessarian with impossible speed. "What are those?" The communication officer asked, studying the sensor readings with confusion. Elder Sage Mira's face went pale. "Ancient ones," she whispered. "The old gods who ruled the galaxy before our time. The child's power has awakened them from their long sleep." Through the tactical display, they could see the alien ships clearly now. They were enormous structures that seemed to be made of living shadow and starlight, defying every law of physics as they moved through space without any visible propulsion. "How many of them are there?" Jake asked. "Too many," Elder Sage Mira replied. "And they are heading for Earth as well as Thessarian. The child's power is calling to them like a beacon." Jake felt a chill of fear through his bond with Lydia. Their unborn daughter was not just caught in a war between species. She was the cause of something much worse. "We have to get to Earth," Lydia said, struggling to stand as another contraction hit her. "The baby is coming early." The journey to Earth became a nightmare of running battles and desperate escapes. Jake piloted their ship while Lydia lay in the medical bay, fighting against premature labor. The bond between them allowed Jake to feel every pain she experienced, making it almost impossible to concentrate on flying. Elven and human fleets chased each other across space, while the Ancient Ones advanced on both homeworlds with unstoppable force. Entire battle groups disappeared when they tried to engage the alien ships, consumed by weapons that turned matter into energy and energy into nothingness. Halfway to Earth, Lydia's labor could no longer be stopped. Jake set the ship to autopilot and rushed to her side as their daughter decided to be born in the middle of a galactic war. "She is coming," Lydia gasped, gripping Jake's hand with strength that surprised him. The birth was unlike anything either of them expected. As their daughter emerged into the world, waves of energy pulsed out from the ship. Every electronic system within 1,000 kilometers shut down temporarily. Both human and elven ships stopped firing as their crews felt a presence touch their minds. Innocent, powerful, and completely without malice. Jake held his daughter for the first time and felt tears streaming down his face. She was perfect, with Lydia's silver hair and his dark eyes. But when she looked at him, Jake could see an intelligence beyond her newborn state, as if an ancient soul was looking out through baby eyes. "Hello, Arya," Lydia whispered, using the name they had chosen together. "Welcome to a very complicated universe." Arya Martinez Starweaver gurgled and reached out with tiny hands. Where she touched the air, small sparkles of light appeared, dancing around her fingers like living stars. "The prophecy is fulfilled," Lydia said softly. "She is the bridge between our worlds." But their moment of peace was short-lived. The Ancient Ones had felt Arya's birth across the galaxy, and their advance quickened. Earth and Thessarian both reported massive alien fleets entering their solar systems. Admiral Brooks contacted them again, her voice filled with urgency. "Mr. Martinez, Princess Lydia, you need to get to Earth now. The Ancient Ones are demanding. We surrendered the child to them. They claim she belongs to them by right of power." "Never!" Jake said fiercely, holding Arya closer. When they finally reached Earth, the planet was surrounded by ships from a dozen different species. Word of Arya's birth had spread, and everyone wanted to see the child who had stopped a galactic war simply by being born. But the Ancient Ones were there too, their massive ships blocking out the sun as they took positions around Earth. A message came from their fleet leader, broadcast on all frequencies in a voice like the whisper of dying. "Stars, give us the child," the voice said. "She carries the power of creation itself. Such power belongs to the Eternal Ones, not to these brief creatures of flesh and blood." Jake and Lydia stood on the bridge of Admiral Brooks' flagship, their baby. Daughter sleeping peacefully in Lydia's arms despite the chaos around them. Through the viewports they could see hundreds of ships, human, elven, and alien, all waiting to see what would happen next. "What do we do?" Admiral Brooks asked. Jake looked at his wife and daughter, feeling the weight of two civilizations resting on his shoulders. The bond between him and Lydia pulsed with shared determination. "We fight," Jake said simply. "For our daughter, for our people, and for the right to choose our own destiny." As if responding to her father's words, baby Arya opened her eyes and looked out at the Ancient One's fleet. For just a moment, her infant gaze held power that made the alien ships hesitate in their advance. The final battle for the galaxy was about to begin. The coronation took place on a ship floating between Earth and Thessarian, with representatives from both species watching as Jake Martinez reluctantly accepted the crown of the United Celestial Empire. The ceremony was simple. There was no time for grand celebrations, with the Ancient Ones gathering their forces at the edge of the solar system. Elder Sage Mira placed the crystal crown on Jake's head, while Admiral Brooks presented him with the seal of human leadership. Lydia stood beside him, holding baby Arya, who gurgled happily despite the serious atmosphere. "I never wanted to be a king," Jake said as he looked out at the assembled crowd of humans and elves. "I was just a Marine who tried to do the right thing. But if accepting this crown means I can protect my family and unite our people, then I will wear it." The crowd cheered, but their celebration was cut short by urgent alarms. The Ancient Ones were moving, their massive ships advancing toward the inner planets with weapons that could crack worlds. Jake's first act as king was to combine the human and elven fleets into a single fighting force. It should have been impossible. The two species used completely different technologies and battle tactics. But baby Arya's presence seemed to make the impossible happen. When human and elven engineers worked together on the same ship, their combined efforts created weapons and defenses beyond what either species could achieve alone. Elven magic enhanced human technology, while human engineering gave focus to elven mystical powers. "The child is the key," Elder Sage Mira explained as they watched the joint fleet take shape. "Her very existence proves that cooperation between our species is not only possible but necessary." The first battle with the Ancient Ones took place near Jupiter. The enemy ships moved like living things, bending space around them and firing weapons that turned matter into pure energy. The combined human-elven fleet fought bravely, but they were clearly outmatched. That was when Arya's power truly manifested, for the first time. As Jake held his daughter on the bridge of the flagship, she reached out toward the battle raging outside. Where her tiny hands pointed, Ancient One weapons simply stopped working. Their reality-warping ships became normal, matter that human missiles could damage and elven magic could affect. "She is neutralizing their advantage," Lydia said in amazement. "But the effort is draining her life force." Jake could feel through his bond with Lydia that using Arya's power was dangerous for the baby. Each time she stopped an Ancient One weapon, she became weaker. They could win the war this way, but it might cost their daughter's life. "There has to be another way," Jake said desperately. The answer came from an unexpected source. As the battle raged, more ships arrived, not just from Earth and Thessarian, but from dozens of other species throughout the galaxy. The news of a child who could unite different peoples had spread, and civilizations that had been enemies for centuries were coming together to fight the Ancient Ones. "Look," Lydia said, pointing to the tactical display. "Reptilian ships fighting beside mammalian ones. Machine intelligences cooperating with organic minds. Your daughter has done more than stop a war between humans and elves. She has shown the entire galaxy what unity can accomplish." But the Ancient Ones were not finished. Their fleet leader, a being of pure energy calling itself the First Shadow, challenged Jake to single combat. The terms were simple. If Jake won, the Ancient Ones would return to their sleep between galaxies. If he lost, Arya would be taken to serve the Eternal Ones for the rest of her existence. "I have to accept," Jake told Lydia as they stood in their private quarters. "It is the only way to end this without more death." "You cannot fight a being of pure energy," Lydia protested. "You are brave, my love, but you are still human." Jake smiled and kissed his wife gently. "I am human, but I am also bonded to the most powerful elf in the galaxy and father to a child who can reshape reality. Maybe that will be enough." The duel took place in the space between fleets, with millions watching from ships throughout the Mao solar system. The First Shadow appeared as a writhing mass of darkness shot through with veins of starlight, its voice echoing directly in Jake's mind. "You are nothing," the Ancient One said. "A brief flame in an ocean of eternity. Surrender. The child and I will grant you a quick death." Jake floated in his environmental suit, holding a simple human plasma rifle against an enemy that had existed since before his species evolved. By all logic, he should have been destroyed instantly. But logic did not account for love. As the First Shadow attacked, Jake felt the bond with Lydia strengthen beyond anything they had experienced before. Through her, he touched Arya's power, and through Arya, he connected to something even greater. The combined will of every species in the galaxy that had chosen cooperation over conquest. The Ancient One's energy attacks passed through Jake harmlessly, as he became something more than human. Not physically changed, but spiritually connected to everyone fighting for freedom. When he fired his simple plasma rifle, the shot carried with it the hopes and dreams of billions of beings. The First Shadow screamed as the blast struck home, its form beginning to dissolve. "Impossible," it whispered. "You are just one small creature." "No," Jake said as the bond with his family and his people filled him with warmth. "I am part of something larger than myself. I am a father, a husband, a king, and a member of a galaxy that chooses love over fear." The Ancient One faded away, its final words echoing across space. "The Eternal Ones will remember this defeat. We will return when the unity you have built crumbles into dust." "Maybe," Jake replied. "But until then, we will protect what we have built." The war ended not with a great explosion but with a simple moment of silence as the Ancient One's fleet vanished back into the deep spaces between galaxies. Across the solar system, ships from dozens of species began the long process of learning to work together. Jake and Lydia established their capital, on a new station built jointly by human and elven engineers, positioned at the gravitational balance point between Earth and Thessarian. They called it Unity Station, and it became the heart of a new form of government that honored the traditions of many species while creating something entirely new. As Arya grew from baby to toddler, her powers continued to develop in ways that amazed everyone around her. She could heal injuries with a touch, make plants grow with her laughter, and somehow always know when people were lying to her. But more importantly, she had inherited her father's courage and her mother's wisdom. "She will be a better leader than either of us," Lydia said one evening as they watched 3-year-old Arya playing with children from a dozen different species in the station's garden. "She will not have to be a leader at all if we do our job." "Right?" Jake replied. "Maybe she can just be a child who happens to have amazing abilities." Lydia smiled and leaned against her husband's shoulder. "You still think like a Marine sometimes, always trying to protect everyone." "Some habits are worth keeping," Jake said, wrapping his arms around his wife. The bond between them had grown stronger over the years, becoming something beautiful rather than just mystical. They had learned to share not just thoughts and emotions but dreams and hopes for the future. As they watched their daughter play, Jake reflected on the journey that had brought them here. He had started as a simple Marine following orders, and now he wore a crown that represented the unity of dozens of species. The transformation should have been overwhelming, but it felt natural because it had been driven by love rather than ambition. "Do you think the Ancient Ones will really return?" Lydia asked. Jake considered the question carefully. Probably, but when they do, they will find a galaxy that has learned to stand together, and they will find that love is stronger than any ancient power. Above them, stars shone through the transparent dome of the garden, stars that now represented not just distant suns but the homes of friends and allies. The galaxy was vast and full of challenges, but for the first time in recorded history, its peoples were facing those challenges together. Jake Martinez had saved a princess without thinking about the consequences. Now he was a king who ruled not through force but through the example of what different species could accomplish when they chose cooperation over conflict. And in the garden below, a little girl with silver hair and dark eyes played with friends of every imaginable species, growing up in a universe where her mixed heritage was not a source of shame, but a symbol of hope for everyone who believed that the future belonged to those brave enough to build bridges instead of walls.